Well, I think that the Jedi are a breed that, we're already in very, very short supply at the, start of Jedi Fallen Order, and now with 5 years past, that situation has just become increasingly desperate and perhaps even hopeless. And so we have Cal's worldview is starting to shift as well. Desperate times are calling for desperate measures, and it becomes very difficult for him to even understand what it is that he is fighting to protect or where he should go. And so we have these huge questions that are being faced against Cal, and a lot of, the setup of the early side of the game is seeing what decisions he's making and how he's making them. And who he decides to make them with. So obviously I can't say what any of those things are, but I can say that it's a great way to launch back into the story with the character, and we also get to see him shift and change over the course of our story in ways that I think are really, really interesting and very exciting. So hopefully people enjoy what we do with it. Trust only in the Force. I guess hope is a very relative term, right? You have the Empire rapidly expanding and very aggressively doing so, and expanding to even the smallest and furthest reaches of this galaxy. And I think that from his perspective, going from planet to planet and seeing just an increasingly desperate situation must be very, very lonely. I can imagine that would definitely weigh on someone, and I think that it's interesting to see how that affects not only Cal, but also a lot of the people in his life as well, and how they choose to deal with that feeling and the situation causes dynamics to continue to shift and change, and what are the relationships and how would they be affected is one of the big questions that we're exploring in this game.
I hear you've been busy making yourself the Empire's most wanted.
We have a physical representation of Cal here that is more, he's more matured, he's, more rugged, and kind of, he's been weathered by time and by situation. He's still a pretty young man, but I actually think that he would look a bit older than what he actually is, because he's been through a lot, and that was something that I wanted to be reflected in performance as well, that you see he's still a young soul, but also there's a weight beyond his years, and there's a wisdom and a self-awareness to him that I think is interesting. But also, you have to be a little bit, of a scoundrel at sometimes to get by in the world. You have to be a little bit roguish, and you have to know when to fight back and how to do it. And I think that Cal has his guard up in certain ways, and he always has as a character, but I think in an increasingly desperate situation, he's going to have his guard up in ways that we might not have necessarily seen in the first game. Well, it is a large galaxy, isn't it? But I think, in all honesty, the most important thing for us is to make sure that Cal's story feels whole, and that we create satisfying narrative arcs amongst the characters that we introduce and create. To me, that has always been the number one priority, is to make sure that what we're doing here, regardless of everything outside of it, is satisfying in a self-contained measure. And then the fact that it then is able to deepen our understanding of the Star Wars world and the canon and everything as well is just like this beautiful icing on the top of the cake. But if you don't have, you know, the actual bulk of the foundation of your story, then everything else doesn't really matter. So to me, that was always the number one most important thing, was to make sure that we had something interesting with what we were trying to say with this story, and where we wanted to go from that. Probably just Yaddle. Yaddle and Cal. Yeah. Exploring the universe together forever. No, I don't know. I think that we get to see a couple of people that, you know, between the first game, I mean, I can't really say for sure, except that there's some really cool stuff, and I was very excited to see what we got to do. You know, I think that's like a life question for everybody. Is there a happy ending? It depends on what you define as a happy ending, right? If you affect change that is meaningful, and if you're able to accomplish the things that you set out to do, I think that is, you know, in some way satisfying or meaningful, and that's what we all hope to do. And I think that Cal, with our story, I think that we have a satisfying exploration of what it is that he's trying to set out to do. Whether or not he succeeds is a big question in the story. But I can honestly say that one of the interesting things that we're doing with the exploration of the Jedi is what it means to be on the light side of the Force. What does that even mean, you know? Especially when you have situations that are increasingly more desperate and increasingly difficult, and you don't necessarily have a right answer. What is considered the good move? What is considered the light side choice? And Cal is struggling to kind of understand what his next step forward should be, and it raises some really interesting questions for him. And yeah, I can't wait for people to see what it is that we're doing with that. I would say that we build upon it in a very significant way in this one.
You ready for a swim, BD?
Well, I'm very lucky. We have a wonderful actor named Gideon Emery who is on set, and we have a 3D printed version of BD, and he... Is it life-sized? It's life-sized, yeah. He has a nose flute or nose whistle that he wears on his face. It's like a little plastic piece that he goes, and so he will make expressive noises and stuff to mimic BD, and he puppets him and kind of moves him along and brings him along. And Gideon has been there since the start. We had one shoot where we didn't have BD, and I basically was just like, we're missing a character in the scenes. And so I was so thankful when we brought Gideon in, because it really does bring like a wonderful dynamic and energy. And like, yes, BD is a droid, but he is still like a fully fledged character, and something that you know, I think brings so much humanity out of Cal and injects so much life into the story as well. So yeah, to be able to work with Gideon, who is just a really wonderful guy, and also he has added so much with the character, it's been great.